Hello. Today I'm going through my process of how I generally make armatures for humanoid-shaped minis. Eventually, this will be a mini for Ian, who plays an armored dark elf that rides a giant spider into battle. But this is just the first step in that whole process. I've drawn a quick outline of how I'm going to make this armature and the tools I'll be using. The whole armature can be made out of a single length of wire, but to bulk it up and keep points at the end, I do use a couple more lengths of wire. I'm using 28 gauge copper wire, and I'm cutting a length of it about 40 centimeters long. This wire is quite soft and bendable, definitely more bendable than you'll want when you start applying clay. That's okay though, because we're going to reinforce it. I bend it at the middle point, which will become the peak of the head. With the wire folded in half, grip the central tip with pliers and twist the wire around itself. Keep going until you have a length twisted that goes a little bit, maybe a centimeter, longer than you want the length from the top of head to hips to be. The fork at the bottom is going to split into the legs. I measure the legs out at 3.5 centimeters this time, but you can go longer if you want a longer anchor below the feet. Bend the wire back up to the hips and wrap it around the hips and torso before you twist the double wire for the leg like you did for the torso, and repeat this for the other leg. The lengths twisted up from the legs are going to become the arms. To find the shoulder height, I leg the figure down on my grid. This is going to be a 30 millimeter tall figure, so I generally try to put the hips at about the halfway mark and figure out where I want the shoulders to be from there. The head and legs, of course, extend well beyond the length that we want at this point, but we'll fix that up. Once I have the shoulder height figured out, I just finish off the arms the same way I did the legs by folding them back over themselves, twisting the excess back around the torso, and twist the arms tight around themselves. You can wind the excess wire more around the torso until you run out, or just snip off the rest once you got it attached back to the torso. If you want to add extra arms or a frame for wings, you'd use a longer length of wire. After quickly anchoring the arms back to the torso, just 1 or 2 loops, go back out again for the extra limbs. This way, you can make a 6-armed creature with wings, still only using a single length of wire. We've got the basic shape of the armature, and if that's all you want, you can stop at this point and just trim the head and limbs to the length you need. I'm going to do a bit more though. For the head, I'm snipping the wire off a little taller than I want the top of the head to be. I find the spot where I want the top to be, untwist the excess wire up to that point, then bring those 2 lengths down, around, and below that, defining the head and neck. To form hands for our armature, again, snip the wire a little past where the wrists will be, about twice the length you want the fingers to extend, maybe a little more. Untwist the wire from the wrists outwards. This will give you 2 lengths extending from the wrist. One length gets looped back towards the wrist to become the palm and fingers, and the other length will become the thumb. To give you a better surface to sculpt fingers on, you can glue some thin tissue paper on and trim it to the shape of the hand. Varnish can also work in place of a glue. Just either way, make sure you give it enough time to dry. For the feet, I bend the wire out and back in at the ankles, and the excess wire below that will become the anchor. You can untwist the wire or leave it twisted. Either way works just fine for anchoring it into the base. You can stop at this point, or if you want to reinforce the armature at key points, you can cut yourself off a little bit more wire and twist it around the armature. Snip off the excess when you're done. You now have an armature with more stiffness and durability than 28 gauge wire on its own. And look at that texture. You won't get that from filing down a thicker piece of wire. You will have no problem at all getting your clay to stick to and stay in place on an armature like this. If you want to keep following the journey of how this piece of twisted wire will become a dark knight riding an arachnid mount, please keep an eye out as this playlist grows. And please like and subscribe. Thank you.